Hello and welcome to the second in the tutorial series that I'm making about making a really basic iOS app and making it quickly. In this tutorial we will basically add another screen so the user can click a button and go to a second screen. That's what we're going to make in this tutorial. So I've opened the code from last time. You can see we've got our hello world label. If you go ahead and open that code, we're going to start by just deleting that label. Let's delete that straight away. So click on the element and click the backspace button. You can see all of the constraints are gone as well. What we're going to do instead is we're going to create a button. So let's search button in our interface components library and drag that into the view. And let's say the button title is, I don't know, go to next view. And then let's drag it wide and place it in the middle somewhere. Here it is. And like last time, we're going to set constraints to make sure it's placed in the middle as well. So let's control drag from our button. And we can see center horizontally in container and center vertically in container. We're going to hold shift and click both of these and click add constraints. Okay, there's a bit of orange around the frame. Basically I've dragged the frame too wide, so the interface builder wants to resize the frame so that it just fits the text. So let's go down to the bottom right again and let's click update frames. And we can see that it's all blue now, so that is all good. Okay, so next, let's add the second screen to which the user will navigate to. So to save space, I'm just going to close that for a minute. And you can access the directory bar on the side with Command 1, but I've just closed it for a second. So let's go back to our interface components library and let's search for view. We can see viewcontroller is our top result. So let's drag from the interface library and create another view alongside our existing view. So we have two views now representing different you can almost say that they represent different screens that the user will see. So let's make sure that we can differentiate them. Let's create a label on the second view called second view, and then let's drag it to the middle and just get it aligned. It doesn't have to be aligned, it's just a bit neater. Control drag to the side again, shift hold, and then shift allows us to select multiple constraints at once. It's just generally quicker. So then let's add these constraints to make sure that the labels align to the view. So now we have two views. Okay, so let's run the app, see if it runs. Go back to the run bar, and I always use iPhone 6, so let's click iPhone 6. Click the play button or Command R if you prefer using shortcuts. So let's do this. Taking a little while to build, but it should be with us. And there we go. And there we go. We can see we've got our go to next view button, but it's not actually doing anything. So I think now it's time for us to start coding. Okay. Let's start by opening up the sidebar again with Command 1. Now you can see that we've got viewcontroller.swift. Okay, when I create new projects, I always rename the view. I never have one viewcontroller Swift file just called viewcontroller. So I'm going to call this home viewcontroller. And I'm going to rename the file home viewcontroller as well, just so it's clear to me like what is going on here. Save anyway. Okay, cool. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another file for the new view controller that we created. So for the second screen, let's create another view controller. So let's call it second screen view controller. And it just creates this blank file. Now when you're new to iOS, it's kind of daunting just having a blank file. So to make things easier, we can literally just copy the pattern from the other file, then paste it in. And you'll get a load of warnings because basically it's a class the same name as the previous. We can't have two classes the same name. So let's call it the same as what we named it. Let's copy that, let's paste it. So now this should all be fine. It's throwing another error. Let's back off that. Let's just click build. That should fix it. I've not imported UIKit. Okay, that's a classic mistake. So when you create a new file, it just imports foundation. So you can see importing basically means the code that it's allowing you to use. So if foundation doesn't include UI elements, so this is like a UI component, foundation doesn't include that. So let's change this to UIKit. Now we should see all of the errors go away. Yeah, and then we do. Basically, the class, which is we've just named second screen view controller, was looking for a component called UIViewController, but that doesn't exist in foundation. So instead we have to import UIKit. Okay, now we've imported UIKit, we've got our second screen view controller and we've got our home view controller. What I like to do now is assign each of the view controller bits of code that we've generated just then to the view controller in interface builder. So to do that, get the class name. You don't have to copy it, you can type it and it auto completes. But so this is our first controller, and then you click on this button here, the identity inspector, and it's saying view controller. We've just renamed it to home view controller, so let's change that there. Okay, so that is now home view controller, and I always set the storyboard ID to the same as the view controller, just so there's consistency. When you get into more advanced things, you'll need this, and even today we'll need it for the next view controller. So let's do the same thing for our second view controller. Let's copy the name, and then let's paste it. So we specify which class it is, and then we paste it in the storyboard ID. Okay, so we've linked up these components in our interface builder to our actual code. And now it doesn't actually do anything yet, so let's click the bottom, the debug area bar here. It's just really important when you're coding because it shows you your output messages. Anything you print to console, and when you're it shows you errors, it helps you debug. This is just the most useful tool, one of the most useful tools in Xcode. So maybe we should write our first piece of code now to basically check that the home view controller is being loaded when the interface element loads as well. So Viewdidload is probably one of the most well-known, well-used blocks in iOS programming. Basically, if the view, once the view is loaded, it will run the code in the block. So let's start with a really simple Swift statement. Let's use the print command. Let's say view has loaded. So now if we run that with command R, I don't know what's closed to the debug area, but let's open it back up. We should see it print out in debug area once it's loaded. View has loaded. Okay, that's good because it means that our view controller in the code is connected to our view controller in the interface builder. So we can begin to expand on this now. Let's go back to the interface builder and let's link our button to our code. This isn't too bad to do. So like we did when we're setting constraints, we have to use control click to connect interface elements with our code, and we do that via something called an outlet. And in the code, it's expressed as IB outlet, interface builder outlet. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this is the assistant editor, and you can get it open by clicking here. Now, if the corresponding view controller file to the view that you've clicked in doesn't open, it's probably set to manual here. So you want to set that to automatic, and you should see, yeah, the correct code. So let's link our button to our code now. Okay, let's control click on the button and let's drag it into the home view controller. And now you should see a connection here. Okay, so we don't really need to do anything itself to the button. We just need to check when the button has been pressed. So this type of connection here, let's just change that to action. So that means when this action's happened, run the code in the block. Okay, so let's say next view button pressed, and it's on the event touch up inside. Now touch up inside is just the key kind of gesture for when a button's pressed. It's I don't really understand all the naming, but it's the one that you use for buttons. So you can see that we've got this IB action. It's just generated this code block here, IB action, next view button pressed. So let's just test that and say print. Then we use double speech mark. Let's say button pressed, and hopefully once the button has been pressed, we should see it print button press. So let's run again, see what happens. Running. There you see, button pressed. So now we've connected our interface element, our button, to our code base, so we can start doing things in our code for the interface elements. So this means now we can trigger the button to make the screen change to the second view controller that we created. So we can do that now. First of all, in the interface builder, we have to create something called a Segue. I don't even know how to say that properly, but it's pretty simple. So a Segue is basically a transition between views. It's basically saying I'm going from this view and I'm going to that view. So once again, you use the control click from the first view. Actually, select the view first. That's it. Select the view and then control click to the second view. And now you can see manual Segue. And you just click. I'm going to go with show detail here. And you can see you've got this connection now in the storyboard. You can see this is our initial slide. This is our initial screen. And the Segue is making us go to the second view controller. Now let's click on that. So let's click on it so it's blue. And let's go into here, our attributes inspector, and then let's give it an identifier just so that we can manually call this, manually call the transition from the code. Now let's call it second view Segue, enter. Okay, so this is basically saying that we're going to go from here to here. Now let's connect it to the button so we can do the transition in the code. So now I've just opened the assistant editor again. And now we can leave the print statement in, and that's okay. But the way to invoke the Segue is self. So by using self, I'm referring to the UIViewController. And the UIViewController has a method in it called perform Segue with identifier. Let's do that. and let's set the identifier using string, again with the double speech mark. Let's go. What did I call the Segue? I called it second view Segue. So it's critical that they're the same, because if you don't place the identifier in, your app will crash because it can't find what it's looking for. Then sender, so who is invoking the Segue? Where is it coming from? So let's say self, because we're invoking it from the UIViewController. Okay, cool. So hopefully this should start the transition from our first view controller to our second view controller. So let's run this, see what happens. And there we go. So we've gone to the second view. And that's basically how you create that's basically how you navigate between screens. That's one of the ways you can navigate between screens. It's quite nice because it allows you to see visually the connections between your interface components, your views, and typically how the user would flow between different parts of the application. So just to finish off, let's create something to make us go back. Okay, I'm just going to create another button in the second view. So let's make sure we've got second view second view. I'm just going to put it here. And let's do the same thing that we did for the previous view. So let's use control click. And let's create an action. Let's say back button pressed. Okay. Print back button pressed. Now let's create the Segue. I really need to learn how to say that properly. From here, I've not got enough space. So make sure the view controller, so when you selected the little yellow icon there, means you've got the view controller selected. Now let's create the Segue, show detail. You can see it's going back. So now that we've got created the Segue, let's give it an identifier and let's call it home Segue. Okay, cool. And now let's invoke it the same way that we did for the previous view controller. So we go self, then perform Segue with identifier, and let's call it home Segue. And let's call it, let's send it as self because we're sending it from the UIViewController. So let's see if we can run this. Go to next view. Oh, I didn't give it a name. Button. Go to next view. Button. And there we go. And that's how, it's a little example of how you navigate between, well, view controllers in iOS. Basic example. There are lots of different ways of doing this that will, well, there's various other different ways of doing it that we can discuss in the future. But this should be enough to get you started going between different parts in your apps. You can create different screens, you can create different elements, you can start working on how you move the user between the apps, as well as custom classing, so creating different view controller code for various different features. Okay, so I hope that tutorial was useful. If you have any questions, feel free to comment and let me know. Hopefully subscribe if you find it useful. Until next time, we'll start making the app more complex in the third tutorial. Thanks very much.